It's 1913. You're cruising down the road in your brand new Ford Model T. The roof is folded back, the sun is shining, and life feels like pure freedom. But there's a problem. Your gas tank is running low. Not long ago, this would have been a major crisis. You'd have to pull over, hunt down a can of kerosene, and carefully funnel it into your car. But in the current times, things are different. Just around the corner, the very first gas station has opened its doors. You pull in, fill up in seconds, and drive away with hardly a thought. That simple moment, stopping at a station designed just for fueling, was revolutionary. It planted a seed that would grow into an industry transforming the way the world moves. In the years that followed, the automobile industry exploded. Before long, more than 150,000 gas stations were operating across the United States, giving people the freedom to travel in a way that had never been possible before. Since then, gas stations have gone through an incredible transformation. What started out as dangerous fire hazards sitting on city streets eventually turned into highly efficient pit stops, serving up 3 billion gallons of fuel every single day worldwide. To see just how they got there, we modeled the entire system. Let's go back to the beginning, uncover the hidden engineering, and look at the 100-year journey to master the modern gas station. Before gas stations, the age of kerosene. To understand how we got here, we first need to rewind to a time before gas stations even existed. Most people didn't own cars yet, but they did need kerosene, and lots of it. Back then, they used kerosene-powered lamps in their homes, which fueled stoves in their kitchens, and it was part of everyday life. If you wanted some, you'd head to a hardware store. There, an employee would pour the liquid directly into a can, hand it over, and you'd take it home. When cars started appearing, people used the same method. They'd buy kerosene at a store, carry it in a container, and pour it into their vehicle using a funnel. It was slow, it was messy, and it was dangerous. Clearly, there needed to be a safer and more efficient way to get kerosene into vehicles. That's when American inventor Sylvanus Bowser stepped in. In the early 1900s, Bowser created the first fuel pump. This was a hand-driven machine with a clever mechanism inside. Each time you turned the crank, it squeezed kerosene through a one-way valve and out through a nozzle at the top. A single crank delivered exactly 1 gallon of fuel. For the first time, it was possible to measure fuel consistently and predictably. These pumps quickly spread to city streets, where attendants could help fill cars. It was more convenient than cans, but there was still one major issue. Customers couldn't tell if they were actually getting all the fuel they had paid for. To solve this, a new type of pump was invented, the visible fuel pump. These had a glass tank mounted at the top. The attendant would first pump fuel into the glass chamber, where the customer could see exactly how much was measured. Then, by opening a valve, the fuel would drain down into the car by gravity. This was a game changer for trust. Drivers could actually watch their fuel being measured, and attendants could work faster. These small curbside pumps worked fine at first, especially since cars were still rare. In 1900, there were only about 8,000 automobiles in the entire United States. But things were changing fast. Just 12 years later, that number skyrocketed to 1.2 million cars. Suddenly, cars were everywhere. Traffic jams started building up around the pumps. Small storage tanks that usually hold only 50 gallons couldn't keep up with the soaring demand. Worst of all, because the tanks were kept above ground, they posed a constant fire hazard. One wrong spark could set everything ablaze. It was clear that a new solution was needed, the first ever gas station. That solution came in 1913. The Gulf Oil Company opened the world's first dedicated fueling station in Pittsburgh. Instead of relying on a single pump or a tiny curbside setup, the station buried a large storage tank underground. 6 pumps were connected to it, so multiple cars could fill up at the same time. On opening day, it sold just 30 gallons of kerosene, but word spread fast. By the end of the week, sales jumped to 350 gallons per day, each gallon costing around 27 cents. Similar stations started popping up everywhere, and soon the gas station became a normal part of American life. By the 1920s, most cars had switched from kerosene to gasoline, which burned more easily and more efficiently. But this change brought along a dangerous new problem. That problem was vapor. Kerosene had a relatively high flash point of about 38 degrees Celsius, meaning it didn't release flammable vapors until it was heated up. Gasoline, however, had a flash point of minus 40 degrees Celsius. That meant it was constantly emitting flammable vapors, even in normal conditions. Inside underground tanks, these vapors would build up. Every time someone filled up their car, those fumes escaped into the air. All it would take was a single spark to ignite everything. Gas stations had gone from being a convenience to being potential death traps. While gasoline made fueling faster, gas stations still had serious issues. For decades, filling your tank was always handled by a trained attendant. That was partly about safety, but it also meant stations had to employ extra staff, and that drove up costs. In 1947, Frank Ulrich tried something radical. He opened the first self-service gas station. By cutting out attendants, he could lower prices. Instead of charging 23 cents per gallon, his station dropped the cost to just 18 cents, undercutting all the competition. But there was skepticism. Was it really safe for ordinary customers to pump gasoline themselves? Many regulators thought not, and self-service stations were banned in most of the country. And there was another practical problem. Most drivers didn't know when their tanks were full. As a result, gasoline often spilled out everywhere, creating a huge mess and an even bigger fire hazard. One of the smartest yet simplest fixes engineers came up with was the automatic shutoff nozzle. At first glance, it looked like a regular gas pump handle, but inside was a clever little float mechanism. As fuel rose inside the car's tank, the float would react to the change in pressure and cut off the flow the moment the tank was full. Suddenly, drivers no longer had to worry about gasoline spilling all over the pavement or down the side of their cars. It made fueling cleaner, safer, and far more efficient. But while this innovation made things better above ground, a different set of dangers was still brewing underground. Those huge storage tanks buried beneath gas stations were constantly filling with vapor. Each time fuel was delivered, that trapped vapor was forced upward and out into the air, turning the area into a serious fire hazard. To make matters worse, the steel tanks didn't age gracefully. Over time, many of them began to rust and corrode, which meant gasoline could slowly seep into the soil, contaminating the ground and water around them. How modern underground fuel tanks work. Today, underground fuel tanks are far more advanced. Instead of steel, they're made from fiberglass, and they're packed with hidden engineering features that keep everything safe. When a tanker truck arrives to refill a station, it connects to a surface valve. Gasoline flows down into the underground tank. As the tank fills to about 95%, a flapper valve kicks in, preventing overfilling. To deal with dangerous vapors, the truck connects to a second valve. As gasoline goes into the tank, vapor is pushed back out through this line, but instead of escaping into the air, the vapor flows back into the truck. Later, it's returned to the processing plant, cooled down, and converted back into usable fuel. When a customer fills up, pumps at the bottom of the tank push gasoline through filters and pipes into the dispenser, and that dispenser delivers fuel through one of the most carefully engineered devices at the station, the nozzle, the hidden tech inside a fuel nozzle. At first glance, a fuel nozzle looks simple. Pull the trigger, fuel comes out, but inside it's a mechanical masterpiece designed to prevent spills and overflows. Here's how it works. As gasoline enters the nozzle, it passes through a narrow opening. Around this opening are small holes connected to a thin pipe running to the nozzle's tip. As fuel flows, it creates a low-pressure zone thanks to the Venturi effect. This draws in air through the small pipe. Another tube leads to a sealed compartment inside the nozzle. When you press the lever, it pivots open a valve that allows fuel to flow. The system is held in place by tiny ball bearings. When your tank finally fills, fuel covers the hole at the tip of the nozzle. No more air gets sucked through the pipe. That shift creates a vacuum in the sealed compartment, lifting a membrane inside. The ball bearings drop, the lever system collapses, and the valve shuts automatically. Just like that, the nozzle cuts off the flow with perfect timing. After the 1970s, cars became more fuel efficient, needing fewer stops at the pump. The total number of gas stations started to decline, but those that remained became safer and more standardized than ever before. Thanks to more than a century of careful engineering, gas stations evolved from dangerous fire hazards into ordinary, almost boring parts of daily life. What was once risky and experimental has now become routine.